Southwest. It's Tuesday night, which that means hockey night. It means Desert Hockey, or Hockey Talk in the Desert Southwest is about to be on here in about 45 minutes, right here from College Bar and Grill in beautiful downtown Tempe. As I look off to my left, I see Sun Devil Stadium. I see Coach Power's office. I see the Wells Fargo Arena, and beyond that, future home of the Sun Devil hockey team. There's a lot of things to talk about tonight. We're bringing on Lyndsey Fry to talk a little Kachinas hockey and a little bit about everything she's doing with the Coyotes and the development of youth hockey in Arizona. We're also going to bring in our newest beat reporter, Seth Askelson. We're going to have him talk a little bit about the NHL, specifically the Coyotes. And we're going to be bringing in my guest host, Andrew Bell, who is the managing editor for the House of Sparky right here in Tempe. So come back with us in about 45 minutes. We're live at 6 o'clock with a brand new show. All right, welcome back in, hockey fans in the Desert Southwest. It's episode 3 of Hockey Talk in the Desert Southwest. I call it the resurrection because we brought it back. It went away for a year. We came back with it. We like it. People like it. We're doing Facebook Live. We're doing also recorded segments, so people can go back and see the recorded segment in a couple of days. If you're not familiar with my guest sitting next to me on my right, I don't know where you've been, Arizona, because Lyndsey Fry. Where do we start? Let's start with Harvard graduate and Harvard hockey player. Let's talk about Olympic medalist. Let's talk about roller hockey. Let's talk about working with women's hockey. Let's talk about working with the Coyotes. The official title with the Coyotes, which is your full-time gig, right?
Yep. Yeah. Official title is hockey ambassador and special advisor to the president/CEO. So it's a mouthful. Very
good. Well, a mouthful that works, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the logo that's on your sweater, I guess we call it, sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Big time involvement from the Coyotes, from your efforts, right? For women's hockey, it is the Arizona Kachinas.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so the Kachinas is now the exclusive girls hockey association for the state of Arizona. So we absorbed Lady Coyotes and She-Wolves. So now any and all girls hockey comes through us. So it is under the Arizona Coyotes Foundation. It's run by myself. I'm the president of the association. Matt Schott is our vice president. And then we've got a couple other people on our board, Natalie Rossi, Vanessa Maines, Aaron Kane, and Jen Treon. I always mess that up. Treon. So it's a super great group. We got a lot of the ASU and GCU players as our coaches, and we have teams everywhere from 8U all the way up through 19U. So we've got 9 teams this season, which is, I'm pretty confident, unprecedented in the state of Arizona for girls hockey. We've got a development program, which is going to operate similar to the way She-Wolves did within the House League up at Scottsdale.
Okay.
And so we'll have an 8U, a 10U, a 12U, and a 14U girls team up there. They'll play against the other House League teams, and that'll just really be a great place for girls who are newer to the game or need a little bit more development. And then we've got the elite side. So the elite side will have 5 teams. We'll have a 19U, 16U, 14U, 12U, and then we'll have a 12U, 10U combo team. The older girls will be tier 2, so we're going to compete at districts this year, which we're super excited about. So it's been really exciting. We're building from the bottom up and really making sure that we're taking care of the base still, which is the small fries program. So we've still got our feeder program, and hopefully that'll kind of be the sustainable model for a long time to come.
So how hard was it to convince the girls to wear that logo?
Not hard at all. Oh my God, they love it.
Everybody loves the Kachina Coyote, right?
Yeah, no, they love it. And the cool thing is the girls have just really owned it.
Right.
They really have started to claim it as their own. And what's even cooler is now when people wear if our employees are wearing their Kachina just polos or whatever for the Coyotes, and it's not necessarily our Kachinas,
Right.
People are starting to associate it with the girls program, which is super cool. So we're building the awareness a little bit at a time.
Okay, so I grabbed you the first time way back 4 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And I asked you about playing hockey out here, and you told me about what it was like to play with the boys.
Yep,
and
yeah.
and I said, what's your thoughts on girls hockey out here? How big's it gonna get? Did you even imagine that 4 years ago?
Gosh, well, it's funny. I mean, this really became an inkling of an idea about that same time. I don't know if it was before or after we talked, but I remember Matt Schott and I sat down and we said, we want to make it bigger. We want to grow it. We want to take it to the next level. And we sat down with my dad, because he was the president of the Chandler Junior Polar Bears, and we sat down with the woman who was his vice president, and we said, all right, this is what we want to do. We want to start this association. It's going to be awesome. And they were like, hold on, you guys have so much stuff that you need to get in order before you can even come close to starting anything. So this really has been a project that's been kind of a 4 to 5 year in the making thing. So a lot of people are thinking we kind of just popped out of nowhere, but this has been a very methodical, patient process, and I certainly didn't think we'd have this many teams right out the gate, but I think we did a good job of taking our time, doing our due diligence, piloting some programs to really make sure that we could get people to buy in, so we could kind of build that confidence that we could get that many girls when we actually launched.
Well, a couple different things have happened over the years as well, nationally, right? I mean, the success continues for USA Hockey women's teams. That was exciting, in the Olympics. But they also brought on a professional hockey league. And I know I mentioned to you a while back, any aspirations in that? And you kind of looked at me with that look, and you said, no. Still feel that way?
Very much so. It's funny. At the time, I was even when I was at the Olympics, like, I just knew in my heart that even me being there, whether we medaled or not, if I used that in the way that I'm using it now, it could change the landscape of girls hockey in Arizona. And I really took that to heart, and I took on that responsibility. And I knew that that's really what I was meant to do. And so deciding not to play professionally and to come home and do this was, I don't ever doubt it for a second. Now, would I like to help be kind of involved in the process of the professional women's league evolving? Absolutely. I sit on a female hockey advisory committee for the NHL. Okay. They don't operate any of those leagues, but as those things develop and conversations happen, I want to see women's hockey succeed, and if our board can be involved in that at all, I'm excited to be a part of it.
Okay, take out your crystal ball for me. Here we go. Right, we got this professional league started. Like any professional league, it's got its bumps in the road. You got to get up and over, and you got to fall down and climb back up again. Your crystal ball, does that ever show a Arizona women's professional hockey team?
Well, I have no idea. I would like to say yes. I think what I would expect to see before that, hopefully, would be a Division I women's collegiate team. That's got to come first before we get a professional team for sure. I think what is more realistic is getting like a Winter Classic tournament down here for the women.
I like it.
That would be super cool, and if we as the Coyotes could ever help facilitate that, that'd be awesome. But I think women's hockey in general still has a really long way to go, and so I'm excited to see where it goes. But I think we got to take care of our youth hockey here first. Make sure we've got a market for them to play in front of.
Absolutely. Well, when I'm on about, people ask me what I do, and I tell them, and they go, "Didn't know ASU had a hockey team. Didn't know that." I'm sure you hear the same thing from people. But the growth is happening. We're seeing it. We're seeing it all over the valley. We're seeing it in the desert Southwest. We're seeing this influx of not only players, but people with interest, right?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing with the Coyotes and the new owner that's about ready to come on board with you guys, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, our president has been really clear to all of this.
Let's throw that out. Aaron Cohen has done a fantastic job.
No, Aaron's
awesome. I see him everywhere, and he has really stepped up and made it, I think, a personal mission. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he took that job with the mission that he was going to get this deal done, and he was only going to do it in a way that was going to keep us here in Arizona. And that's, you know, he's told our stakeholders that, he's told our season ticket members that. I mean, I really do believe that, you know, this new owner coming in is going to make sure that happens. But I think something that's also awesome about Aaron and kind of the direction he's taken the team is it's more than just hockey, and I think that's going to kind of pull us into the new era of sports and entertainment in general, is making sure that you know, it is about your product on the ice, but it's also about what you're doing in the community. It's also about what you're doing to develop and engage new fans, to grow the game in your community. And I think we're really working to tackle all of those things, and it's exciting.
Well, a couple things I want to touch on. I know that you have a feeling a little bit for roller hockey, right? You like playing it.
Yeah.
You played in a tournament, right?
Yeah.
You won something.
I did.
Right? You won gold.
About a year ago, yep.
Right. Okay. So, what's your thoughts on the deck rinks? You like to see the Coyotes' involvement in deck rinks and things like that?
Yeah, no, I think the deck rinks are great. We're actually in the process of programming some of them, so hopefully we'll see some traction on that here soon. Make sure that people can get out there, use them, play on them, and ultimately, I mean, as somebody who's now kind of fallen in love with the inline side, I see it as this really great bridge between playing street hockey in your shoes to, if you're not ready to make that full jump to ice hockey, it's an awesome in-between, more affordable option. So I think building the deck rinks is a good first step. Making them inline capable was something we added this year, which is super important. And I think now it's just taking the next step and making these things programmable and getting more kids and adults out there playing.
All right, let's back up again to Kachinas, because that's what I brought you here for. So tell me a little bit about the Kachina program. A, how did it start? B, when did it start? And what are we doing right now?
So I would say we officially, we piloted really just kind of a development program about 8 months ago. Started up in August or September, and that was purely, I mean, we didn't play any games. It was just clinic-based. Let's see how many girls we can get out here. And it was mostly for the younger girls. And so we didn't formally launch as an association until March is when we got approved. And then we were strategic about making sure we had a summer program in place, so that we could attract the girls once they knew about us, from all ages, all skill levels. And we break it up. So we've got, you know, a high school group, we've got an elite group, we've got a development group. And once we did that, it made the conversations with some of the other stakeholders in women's hockey a lot easier, as far as convincing them that this was the way of the future. And we had our tryouts in June. Got our teams picked, so now we're just working on scheduling. One of the things we're doing that's a little unique is especially for our older teams, we're working on kind of the first steps of a Southwestern league for girls. So we're going to try to get some home weekends on the schedule with some of the teams in Vegas, New Mexico, Southern California, even like Central California. So all those conversations are happening so that these girls, you know, who are 18 years old don't have to play down against boys who are 14.
Right. Well, I know all my friends in Tucson that are watching are going like, when are you coming to Tucson? What's happening in Tucson, and is there a chance that you're going to get down there with some of this?
Yeah, we actually did a small fries clinic down in Tucson about 2 months ago, so that was really good. We'd love to do a couple more of those this year. Also would love to get up to Flag and do something similar, kind of take small fries on the road. Kachinas, we actually have a couple different players from Tucson and Flagstaff. We've even got a couple from Yuma who are coming to us. So I think, you know, for us, it's really focusing on the bottom of the pyramid and making sure that they're growing the girls' side of the game at the youngest age levels, so the demand is there for us to go to them. Because right now there's just not enough girls down in those markets to justify us going and running a full-blown program down there. So they are having to come to us, but we're incredibly flexible, both with practice times, pricing, all of it for our friends who are in some of the outer cities.
All right, we can go on for about another 3 hours. We have thousands of questions. I want to try to narrow it down to a couple of things. First of all, I want to give a shout out to your big supplier, a good friend of mine too, Randy over at Behind the Mask, because I know he steps up and does a great job for you guys too.
Absolutely.
So we'll shout that out. I also want to talk about the women's coaches or the girls coaches that you have.
Yeah.
They're all women.
Yeah,
right?
It's pretty incredible. For our summer program, I would say we are 98% women. We've got a couple men who hop out. Small fries is still all women.
Right.
But we are, we don't want to be exclusive, right? I mean, we don't want to totally just flip the dial and not allow any men in. So,
but right, the girls feel comfortable with you guys, right?
They do. But I mean, they're comfortable with the men too. It's definitely that younger age group that we try to be all women. But we are very predominantly women, which has been awesome to see.
Well, I know that firsthand because I asked Jordan Nash Bolden if she wanted to come on the show, and she said, "I'd love to, but I'm coaching." And I'm going like, oh, what am I going to do, man? I got to change days or something to get her. But eventually there's going to be a gap where I'm going to get her on here because she's excited. She wants to talk about it. The growth is phenomenal. Your work, I told you over and over again, I'm so impressed with what you do.
Well, thank you.
I'm even more impressed with what you're doing with the Coyotes because that's such a huge step in this market. We need them to grow the base for everybody that's involved in hockey. So kudos to you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Keep the Kachinas going.
Absolutely.
Keep growing the brand. And the one final thing I want to ask you is that college hockey is taking a leap here. It's not NCAA yet, it's ACHA, but teams are starting to come around. There's recruiting. There's girls that are showing up that want to play. You've had a little touch with Grand Canyon over the last year or so.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
I mean, I can sum it up in one story. Our home opener, I was on the bench with GCU. And then Aaron Kane, who also grew up here. And then you had on the ASU bench, Kaylee Gibson, who we grew up playing together. And we just looked at each other after, and you could almost cry. Like seeing Arcadia sold out with young girls pounding on the glass, that was just something that was so off our radar. So that to me was just the coolest thing in the world to experience. So it's super meaningful, it's super impactful, and it's cool to see the ecosystem of the college players coaching the little ones and the little ones coming to their games. So it's super fun.
Lyndsey Fry, thanks for stepping in. I will call on you as often. I told you before, anytime you want to come on, there's an open spot here.
Thank you.
We love the conversation. We love what you're doing with all of the different hockey that you're involved in. Thanks for stopping by here at College Bar. And come back anytime.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it.
We'll be right back with another segment in just a few minutes.
I'm Hockey Southwest. My name is Andrew Bell alongside Seth Askelson, and we're going to be talking some Coyotes hockey now. And first of all, thank you so much to Lyndsey Fry for stopping on by and having a great discussion about the Kachinas and just everything they're establishing here with women's hockey in the Valley. But now getting to the NHL, Seth talked a little bit about the Coyotes. They made a big deal today. Pick up Carl Soderstrom in a trade for Kevin Connaughton. You're our new Coyotes beat reporter, so I want to ask your thoughts, Seth. First of all, what you thought about the deal and just that whole move that happened this morning.
Yeah, it's a good move, a move for a veteran center. They do have a lot of those, but you can never have too many veteran forwards, especially for a team that down the stretch had a hard time scoring goals. Had a lot of defensemen too. I mean, Kevin Connaughton was serviceable enough. It was kind of that sixth man, sometimes that seventh man between him and Labushkin last season. A player that they felt, obviously we're not in the room, but almost a player that almost can't grow anymore. You don't necessarily want to say that because you never know who has breakout seasons. I mean, just look at the Knights 2 years ago, but I think a guy that they felt maybe wasn't a part of their future anymore. You got Pierre Oliver Joseph coming up. He might be on the team this year. He definitely might be in Tucson, just kind of depending on how they evaluate him, but a lot of defensemen, and they needed some forwards, and they got a guy who has some veteran experience, played in the playoffs the last 2 years, and I think the Coyotes are finally starting to build. I think this is the year they're going to make a full-on push towards the playoffs.
Definitely. So good pickup this morning, and I want to talk a little about the schedule being released as well with this new Coyotes season that's coming up. What were your thoughts on the schedule and just kind of what they did, with the games that they put forth?
Yeah, it's opening the season against Boston, defending Eastern Conference champions, or at least that's the home opener. Opened the season in Anaheim, actually. So 2 years ago when they opened the season in Anaheim, wasn't the way they wanted it to go. And Rick Tocchet's first game, we're up 3-0, and ended up losing that game, and kind of foreshadowing for the first 2 months of that season, kind of how things went. But a chance to turn it around against, 2 years ago, Anaheim was in a spot where they were going to be pushing for the playoffs, and everyone thought the Coyotes were going to have a rough year. And now 2 years later, it's the other way around, where a lot of people are expecting the Coyotes to make a push towards the playoffs, and the Ducks, it might be a rough year for them. So an interesting challenge for them to start the year on the road. Then they get the defending Eastern Conference champions, who were one game away from really being the defending Stanley Cup champions, at home to open the season. So finished the year with 7 straight Western Conference opponents, and saw Luke Lipinski's tweet, and he made a really good point earlier today that that's going to be the most important part of the season if they're making a playoff push, because it's going to be against teams that you're going to be fighting for in that last spot. And so for the Coyotes, that final 7-game stretch, I mean, sure you can say that about any other team, right? All your final 7-10 games will be the most important, but last year for the Coyotes, in their final 6 games, 4 of those were an Eastern Conference road trip, whereas now for this upcoming season, a 7-game finish against Western Conference team, that means that is a 4-point swing every game you play. And hopefully the Coyotes are in a position where it's, if we lose one, we're in big trouble. Hopefully they've built themselves a little bit better for that situation. But if they are in a situation like they were last year, it's 4-point swings pretty much the last 3 weeks of the year. So we'll see what they have.
Yeah, and you mentioned those conference games. Of course, here on Ice Time Hockey, you talked about the Coyotes, but just down the road, or down in Vegas, or up in Vegas, I should say, the Vegas Golden Knights as well. What do you see coming from that rivalry? Just with the upcoming season, this is a Coyotes team. I know the Vegas had a really good start, and the Coyotes kind of had a little bit of a slow year. Coyotes played better hockey next year, but going into that rivalry this next season, there's a chance for it to be about as equal as it's ever been, especially with some of the moves that the Coyotes are making, and kind of how the franchise played this year. If they're able to build on that, what do you foresee out of that possible rivalry and kind of its development?
Yeah, I thought as the season went along this past year, there was a lot of talk that game in Vegas towards the end of the year was going to be kind of, that might be the battle for the 3rd spot. Obviously Vegas, they found their stride, and the Coyotes unfortunately went on a tough streak there at the end of the year, so that didn't end up being the case. But the Coyotes, when they go to Vegas, I mean, they play well. Outside of that first game, Vegas' first ever home game in franchise history, rough go, but since then the Coyotes have found their game in Vegas. But when Vegas comes to Arizona, they play well too. They win in Gila, so it's almost weird where you don't. It's almost road ice advantage in this rivalry throughout the first 2 years, and so I think it'll be interesting. I think it's that might be the battle for the 3rd seed in the Pacific Division again. Kind of depends on how everything plays off. It'll be interesting to see how Calgary bounces back. I think it's going to be David Rittich for them as a goaltender. Mike Smith, I wouldn't say he had a terrible playoffs. I think he didn't get a lot of help in those playoffs, but he's another year older, a guy that I think Coyotes fans know he struggles with injuries early in the year. I think you get him to November, December, and maybe it was part that you had a lot of wear and tear on him just throughout the season when he was with the Coyotes. I mean, he was their main guy, but you saw in Calgary in his first year he played a lot of the season to start the year, and in the middle part when Calgary really needed him, and where you saw them kind of fall off the table a little bit back in the 2017-18 season was when he was out. And so it'll be interesting to see what the Flames do from a kind of goaltending standpoint. Edmonton, I mean, you just never know with them. 1 year you think they're going to blow away with the Pacific Division, and the next thing you know, they're talking top 3 lottery again. I think Dave Tippett's the right guy to get them into shape. We've seen him, when he was the coach of the Stars, he came in and he already had a lot of developed talent and a lot of guys that had a lot of skill, and he turned the Stars team that pretty much Stanley Cup contenders for a good 10-year stretch there. So I think he's the right coach there. He'll get them turned around. Vegas and the Coyotes, obviously, they're kind of, I wouldn't say in a weird spot, but the Coyotes feel like they need a push now. Vegas still Stanley Cup contenders, I think, in their minds, and it's hard to disagree necessarily, but Marc-Andre Fleury, another year older, I think they need to find another goaltender. I think with him, you're almost in another situation where with Edmonton, with Cam Talbot 3 years ago, right? I mean, he played so many games with Edmonton that the next year I think he was just tired. So we'll see if Vegas is able to get something different. So I think when you're talking Pacific Division playoffs, I mean, you could say, oh, that might be a wild card matchup between the Coyotes and the Knights, and at the same time you could say, well, that might be the winner of the Pacific Division. So it's just, the Pacific Division is so wide open, and I feel like we've said that the last few years, but with the Knights and the Coyotes coming into this year, we could be talking about division winners on the line.
Yeah, it was wide open this past season as well. I mean, Calgary, got off to a hot start, but they got tight down towards the end of the year, especially for those 2 and 3 spots in the Pacific. But we're talking about this upcoming season. Now let's talk a little bit about something that might be a few seasons down the line, and that's the NHL draft that just happened over the weekend. Coyotes going with a defenseman in their first-round pick. There's some talk about possibly wanting to go with Cole Caulfield at number 1, and this is a team that's looking for forwards. But I think you and I discussed this wasn't on air, but a couple days ago, about the Coyotes looking for forwards that they need now in the immediate future rather than down the line. And so they go with a steady defenseman from Sweden. What do you think of the pick? And more importantly, where do you think he fits in the system over the next couple of years or down the line?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the reports on him, he's a great two-way defenseman and a right-shot defenseman, something you don't see a combo of in the NHL, a guy who's a great two-way player and a right-shot defenseman. They're so coveted, and I think it was interesting that they traded up for him. I think a lot of people thought, well, he would have fallen to 14, but you saw with the Flyers at 14, they took Cam York, a defenseman, so wonder if Philadelphia kind of, I wouldn't say bluffed, but kind of was like, oh, well, maybe we'll take him, and they got an extra pick out of the Coyotes. But I think the Coyotes got a guy, like you said, the Coyotes need immediate forward help now. I don't think anybody outside the top 2 is going to be able to bring you that help, but you might be wrong, right? I mean, last year we saw Kotkaniemi with the Montreal Canadiens, who went 3rd overall. He ended up playing night 1, so it's so hard. I mean, the draft experts, they watch so many games that, even they get things wrong and they don't know. So coming from somebody who has watched maybe 20 minutes of a junior game, when the Memorial Cup was on and passing, it's hard to say. But I mean, even if he is a year or 2 away, I mean, look at the Coyotes defensive core, Nicholas Jarmelson and Demers and Alex Gallegossi getting a little bit older. And I think in 2 years, you're going to be talking about guys who, might be retiring, or, it's always good to have great defensemen, right? I don't think you can ever complain about that. And you look at the Blues, right? How did they win? They had skilled defensemen that could play both ways, and you're getting a guy like that. Maybe he's not as big as those Blues defensemen, but still a guy that, a lot of people like his shot from the point. Doesn't put up a lot of gaudy numbers, but he's also playing in the SHL, right? I think when you're talking about the draft, a lot of the concern, I guess you would say, is what's the level of competition, right? I mean, when you look at the juniors, a lot of those guys are between 16 and 22 years old, or 20 years old, excuse me. So you have a guy, you might be going up against a 16-year-old and you might be going up against a 20-year-old, whereas in the SHL, it's all grown men there, right? It's all adults, and if you can play highly at that level, and that's why a lot of people like the European players, is because they are playing, whether it be in the SHL, whether it be in Liga in Finland. I think for him, having that experience is going to be good. Now it'll be interesting to see, are they going to send him to Tucson, or are they going to have him go back to the SHL this next year, take another development year? We'll see where they want him to develop. I know a lot of people, a lot of experts per se, like the North American game is different than the European game. It's a little more physical, and so always that question is it going to be, there's going to be some sort of transition period there. Do you want him to learn that physical transition period now, or do you want him to kind of develop his skills, develop his game, and then kind of say, okay, well, kind of figure it out now? So we'll see what they want to do.
Definitely, and worth noting, of course, the Coyotes won with the defenseman in the first round, but had 7 other forwards after that, picked only 1 other defenseman in the draft. So they stocked up on forwards for the future. It wasn't like, they just missed out on the first round and just went all defense heavy. They picked 7 forwards after that. So big time for the franchise. They're looking to make immediate moves. They make the Soderberg move this morning. The schedule comes out, and then we have the NHL draft, of course. So a lot going on over the last 3 days. Seth, thank you so much for your insight. And with that, we're going to take a quick timeout here on Ice Time Hockey Southwest, but make sure to stick with us. We have more coming up for you here on the show.
Pre-game like a pro, post-game like a champion at College Bar and Grill. Located across the street from the iconic A Mountain and Sun Devil Stadium and a quick walk from Wells Fargo Arena, College Bar and Grill is your home for the best local craft beer, delicious creative cocktails, tasty food, and Tempe's best atmosphere for Arizona State athletics. College Bar and Grill. Pre-game like a pro, post-game like a champion. Online at ilovecollege.co.
Southwest, Scott Strande with Seth Askelson. Seth, big news for us anyway. We were able to bring you on as our new Coyotes beat reporter. Excited to have you doing that for us and filling the Coyotes page on our website as well. So welcome aboard.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I know we talked about this last week, but prospect camp coming up. I'll be heading out Thursday, so hopefully get some great content. I know yesterday a lot of people had spoke. And I think a lot of people are excited, right? I mean, I know it's just prospect camp. I think quotes maybe are a little bit heavier when it comes to training camp time, which right. Kind of makes that first training camp press conference, but it's always good, right? I mean, you get to talk to the GM, you get to talk to the first round pick, you get to talk to the head coach, and I think it's, you know, one of those evaluating times, right? I mean, 2 years ago, kind of a weird spot for the Coyotes when they're in between Tippett and Tocchet, but it was before Tocchet was announced as the head coach. So that prospect camp, a lot of the Tucson head coach at the time, blanking on his name at the moment.
Yeah, Mike Van Ryn.
Yep, Van Ryn, who was part of who went to the Blues actually, the head coach on that staff.
Got himself a Stanley Cup.
Yep, he did. But Mike Van Ryn was running that training camp because I mean that was kind of the guy that knew everybody, right? I mean, you know, kind of whatever assistant coaches were left over, and you got to be happy for Dave Tippett, right? Going to Edmonton, a lot of good young talent there, and he's bringing the gang along, right? I mean, Jim Playfair most likely going to Edmonton. Jim Playfair was
instrumental here, very
instrumental, and I think Dave Tippett almost got I don't want to say the bad end of the deal. I think it was just unfortunate timing for him. He had a great run, but he should be good in Edmonton. But yeah, I mean, 2 years ago when you had your Tucson coach running the development camp because you just didn't have a head coach and you were kind of still looking to, now you're entering a prospect camp where you wonder, are any of these guys going to be on the team just because the talent is so deep, especially on the defensive end. I mean, got a feel for a guy like P.O. Joseph, right? I mean, guy would probably start the year in Tucson. I mean, I think he's still going to be a top guy. Maybe it's not a bad thing, right? I mean, Goligoski, I think we talked about Goligoski, Demers, Jarmelson getting a little bit older. I don't think, to say over the hill quite yet. I mean, they're not that, not like 38, 39 years old, but definitely, in a couple of years that you're going to need to kind of bring in maybe some younger legs, some fresher legs. I mean, we saw what happened with the Blackhawks, right? With Seabrook and Keith, they've had a better year this last year, but 2 years ago, I mean, Seabrook was getting healthy scratch nearly every night, and Keith just didn't have the legs. So,
well, the other thing you got to talk about is injuries, right? I mean, Lord knows we've seen injuries with this team. So, got a guy like Kyle Capabianco coming back from an ACL injury and surgery, and so there's a lot of talent, but can you really have enough depth? Really?
No, you can't, but you almost have a problem where are you going to have upset guys, right? I mean, it's obviously when guys are upset in the NHL, I wouldn't say it's magnified as much as in baseball or basketball or football. I think you know a lot about that, a little bit more, that a player's disgruntled. I think hockey players are pretty good when it comes to having their displeasure come out.
All right.
In terms of ice time, I think they're a little bit better at hiding that, and then those things kind of get kept a little better hidden. But you got to wonder. I mean, I don't think right now any of those guys, the younger guys, would be too frustrated. But 2-3 years down the line, if P.O. Joseph is still kind of hanging out in Tucson, is he gonna kind of wonder about his future with the team? And I think it also gives the Coyotes room to maybe trade away one of those veteran defensemen. I don't think it's going to be Jarmelson. I mean, he played the only Coyote to play all 82 games, third in the league in block shots. But I think when you look at it, maybe that makes Goligoski or Demers expendable per se in a trade to bring in another forward. And I mean, you talk about trades.
Let's talk about that, because there's a lot of rumors speculating right now. The team that I'm covering for us, the Vegas Golden Knights, are maxed out and over and above the cap. They need to make some moves. There's no secret about that. George McPhee was talking today about how he knows he's going to have to deal some people. What's he going to deal them for? Is he going to deal for more players? Is he going to deal for... And interesting that the Coyotes name came up, right?
Right.
I realize this is all speculation, but that's an interesting trade partner, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you don't see in-division trades
Right.
quite often. You don't really see rival trades. I mean, the rivalry is interesting, but I mean, you don't see that very often. You don't see Calgary and Edmonton trading very often. You don't see Vancouver and San Jose trading very often. It's just one of those things that you don't see, but I think it's a situation where the Coyotes are going to help out Vegas, almost kind of a money dump help, which I think you saw that with JT Miller and the Canucks and the Lightning. And the Canucks gave up a lot for what people are considering a salary dump. I mean, I think JT Miller is a great player.
I do too.
And I think that's what the Coyotes need to be careful of. You don't give up a lot for a salary dump. Not that the Coyotes wouldn't get a good player back in return. I mean, I think Pacioretty's name has kind of been floated out there, bringing back
that just stuns me, to be honest with you, because this time last year we were talking about Pacioretty coming in and the difference that he was going to make. So if that happens, I think I'll be the first one to be knocked over with a feather.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the most intriguing name, right? You bring it back with Galchenyuk. Maybe they motivate each other, right? I mean, I think Pacioretty picked it up at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But Galchenyuk, I think part of it was injuries. He was kind of switching between center and wing a lot. He was playing with a lot of different line mates. I think it was just hard for him to get it going. But I think if you're able to stabilize him with a guy like Pacioretty, who he's played with before, maybe move him to left wing. Maybe have a guy like Christian Dvorak play the center. Maybe a guy like Derek Stepan. I mean, I think they have a lot of options now. I think a Pacioretty, Dvorak, and Galchenyuk line, that would be a dangerous one. I think, and it's weird, right? It's almost weird to say, all right, well, now Clayton Keller's our second line forward, because if you're able to put a line together like that, and then you go Keller, Stepan, and whoever you want to throw on the right wing there, I mean, it'd be hard to see Panik coming back, especially if the Coyotes make a move like that. Wouldn't say Kevin Kachinas was necessarily a salary dump per se, but I think they got a little bit of cap relief with that, with the Soderberg trade. So it'll be interesting.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I know one of the guys that I gave you the assignment to try to go get, we'll see if you're able to get him with Barrett Hayton, but I saw this little clip of Barrett. He looks bigger, he looks stronger, he looks more comfortable. The Coyotes have looked for a top-line center for years, right? That's always been the thing. Who's going to be that guy that's going to stand out? What's your thoughts? Barrett Hayton going to be that guy that's going to make the jump this year?
Yeah, I think he could. I mean, and it's weird, right? When they drafted him last year, everyone's like, okay, that's a I wouldn't say hide him in the juniors, but okay, send him back to juniors. In a couple of years, he'll come back and he's great. All of a sudden, 1 year in the juniors, and you're like, okay.
And he had success.
And everyone's like, okay, well, now you're talking about, oh yeah, now we might have a first line center at 20 years old,
right?
And or 19.
Yeah,
sorry, at 19, and it's kind of weird because 2-3 years ago you're like, man, the Coyotes don't have a number one center. Strome isn't developing the way everyone was hoping, and now all of a sudden you're like, well, now we have like 6 centers. What are we going to do? I mean, it's kind of where the Coyotes are at, and a team you'd say 5 years ago, lacking in depth at defense, lacking in depth at center, is almost at a point where they need to start trading some of those pieces away to get scoring wingers. And that's not a bad problem to have, right? That shows the growth of the Coyotes and John Chaika. And I think with John Chaika, he's going to win executive league. He's going to win GM league at some point. And it's hard to disagree, right? I mean, with the almost mess you'd say he came into, not necessarily his fault, not necessarily, I think it was just kind of the life cycle of a team that makes the playoffs and, can't pay the guys. I mean, we saw the Coyotes when they made it in 2012. They weren't able to pay Ray Whitney what he was looking for. And, Verbata didn't play as well as he could have. And I think part of that was he just didn't have Whitney on his line. And, Verbata ends up leaving. So it's kind of just almost the death cycle of a part of a team that made the playoffs for 3 consecutive years. And now you're back to life, right? Yep. The young guys are starting to develop, and I think the difference between this team and the team that made the playoffs 3 years in a row from 2010 to 2012 is you're not getting players that are playing towards the end of their career, and Dave Tippett is getting the last little bit out of them, right? I think you're getting a lot of a team that, okay, you got a lot of younger guys. Keller's got at least another 10 years in the league. Hayton probably another 15 in the league. But that's the thing, right? Galchenyuk, he's only 24. I mean, these guys aren't that old,
right?
And you're starting to see it come together a little bit, and we'll see if they're able to break out.
All right, let me throw a couple things at you before we wrap things up for this segment. I sense a lot of enthusiasm, jump in their step, all the way around the Coyotes there. I know you'll be out there on Thursday, but are you starting to feel that? Do you feel a confidence building? Like this team is like, hey, we've arrived. We've got a new owner coming on board. We've got our first billionaire owner. You know, let's be honest, money makes a difference in this. It makes a difference in everything, but certainly in hockey. But are you feeling the same thing that I'm feeling from this team?
Yeah, and I think it's years ago, I think a lot of guys came into the camp with kind of the mindset, oh great, it's another rebuild year.
Yeah.
You know, not that they didn't try, I don't want to make it like that. You know,
right.
They definitely gave their effort and did their best, but I think a lot of guys come to camp, all right, well, it's another rebuild year, and if we get off to a bad start, you know, we might be in trouble. Whereas now it's kind of like, all right, this is the time to make the jump. So everybody's clamoring to get on the roster, right? I mean, especially a guy like Hayton, Pierre-Oliver Joseph, I think they're clamoring to get on the roster, and it's right. I mean, winning is infectious, and it brings an infectious attitude, and it's everybody in camp's like, okay, now I get a chance to be a part of an organization that wants to win and is on the right track to win. How do I make sure I can solidify my spot in that organization?
You know, we talked all kinds of Coyotes hockey, and one thing that we didn't talk about a Hall of Famer and Phil Housley coming on board as an assistant coach. Me being a Minnesota native, and I grew up with Phil Housley, right? I mean, so we go way back. I'm so excited to see him here. He's a very good defensive specialist. He was a Hall of Fame defenseman, for crying out loud, but he's also very good at working on the power play. He's had his success in Nashville. He had his stint coaching the head coach of Buffalo. Now he's here, and he's like kind of the back burner. How does that work?
Well, it's because he's coming on an assistant role, right? I mean, sometimes you're like, oh, Phil Housley's an assistant, cool. You kind of see them roll across on NHL Network. Yeah. But it's like you said, it's
it can't hurt though, right?
It can't hurt. Like you said, really good with the power play, especially in Nashville. I think he just had a kind of an unfortunate time in Buffalo. I don't know how much of that was his fault. That he kind of fell off the table. I mean, you know, some onus falls on the head coach when you have such a hot start like that, and it ends in yet another playoff-less year. But the success he had with Laviolette and in Nashville, and just the way, like you said, not only is he a great defenseman, not that the Coyotes need any more defensive help coaching-wise, right? Best top 5 PK in the league, and you know, just locking it down. But he'd never be too good at defense, right? Until
and for those that don't know, his son Wilson went to school right here at ASU,
right,
and played on the ACHA team. And I called him and his partner the two best penalty killers I saw in ACHA hockey 3 years ago. So there's some talent there, and it's great to have Phil back in the Valley.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think you're going to see hockey at an all-time high here in Arizona this year. The Suns made a lot of questionable moves that people are kind of wondering what they're doing. The Diamondbacks, I think the Diamondbacks are going to make a playoff push. So for the Coyotes to, you know, the D-backs could be in the midst of a playoff race. The Coyotes showing up and playing well. The Cardinals have Kyler Murray. That's the thing is, okay, so, you know, baseball season ends in October. Football season ends in February. Well, now at one point you're going to have the Coyotes and the Suns. If the Suns are still on the same track that they're on right now, it's going to be the Coyotes might take over the town. I mean, you saw it in that Sunday afternoon game against Minnesota.
I did.
Place was packed. They played Tuesday, the next Tuesday against Los Angeles. Place was packed for a Tuesday night game. For the thing of, oh, well, it's too far to drive and nobody wants to go after work and the traffic is too much. Well, look, in Arizona, you win, they will come. It is literally Field of Dreams when it comes to field. You know, it's
field of ice, right?
Field of ice. If you build it, they will come, and the Coyotes are building it right now, and the fans are coming out in droves. And if they can find a way to keep it up, it might be the hottest ticket in town.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up. This segment with you is, again, thanking you for coming on board and helping us out with Coyote coverage as we build this thing. We're trying to grow the game in Arizona and in the desert Southwest. I put something on Twitter today. I said, my gut feeling is Vegas and Arizona are going to play huge roles in who wins the West this year. I said that in front of Andrew too, and I know Andrew, being from San Jose, is going like, the Sharks got something to say in this too. But you got thoughts on that real quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are, right? I mean, like we said, that could be a wild card push. That could be the division winner push. The Pacific is so wide open, it's insane. Right. And that's the thing, is when you look at the Western Conference itself, there might be 3 teams where you say, yeah, they're probably not going to make it. Whereas you look in the East, there's a lot of teams that you can say, yeah, there's no way, you know. But in the West, I mean, 5 teams in the Central.
All right.
You know, Minnesota's probably going to find a way to turn it back around. Chicago's back on the upswing. Somehow they revived themselves. I mean, I think the Knights and the Coyotes, not only the Pacific Division, but the Western Conference, it might come down to them at some point.
Totally agree. We're going to take another quick break. We're going to come back. I'll bring Andrew Bell back in with me, and we'll wrap things up. We're going to wrap it up, though, by talking a little Sun Devil hockey and some 8 Sun Devils that are in development camps as we speak.
Hey, Michael here from M-Drive. My dad, a world-class scientist, actually made M-Drive for himself to stay active and continue enjoying life. And yes, M-Drive supports healthy testosterone, but it's so much more. M-Drive is the everyday supplement to fuel your drive with more energy and more strength. Listen, we'd love for you to try M-Drive too. Visit mdriveformen.com and we'll give you 20% off your first purchase. Just type in the code DRIVE at checkout. Refine your prime with M-Drive.
All right, welcome back in, hockey fans in the Desert Southwest. Hockey talk in the Desert Southwest. Andrew Bell is still with me. I hung him around for a little more than an hour here because we're pushing this thing. Wow, some great guests, right? And we had a chance to listen in with Lyndsey Fry and everything that she's done. How good is Seth talking about NHL hockey, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you guys can chat it up a lot. You guys have done your own stuff.
Well, I do have to say, Seth is definitely a step down from Lyndsey Fry, but he's just to my left, so I'm just giving him a hard time. But no, Seth brings a lot of expertise and insight with the Coyotes, but come on. I mean, Lyndsey Fry's way above Seth. But
what she's doing with everything, women's hockey, just hockey in general, I mean, to put that much effort into something is just a role model beyond belief.
Yeah, it's like you were saying earlier, we were talking before, just how much she's done, and it's just so impressive. I mean, the girls' game continues to grow, and what I love about what she does is, and she talked about it with you, but kind of getting local players, the ASU, GCU players, to get back into the community and teach the next generation of girls. And for those of you who don't know, I originally started off, I know that's where we met, Scott. Right. I was covering ASU women's hockey as one of my first gigs as a state press beat reporter covering sports here at ASU, but got to meet Jordan Nash Bolden and a couple players from the ASU team, and those are opportunities that they didn't have growing up here in Arizona, and for them to kind of give back and kind of build the next class of great Arizona girls hockey players. That's pretty special, and with what Lyndsey's doing, Lyndsey Fry, that's awesome, and I just hope it continues to grow and get bigger, and I would put money on that there'll probably be a Division I women's hockey team within, I don't know exactly the time frame, but it's going to be somewhere down the road, because with how many players that they have,
it has to, the way it's growing.
Yeah,
the way it's growing, it has to. Well, let's wrap things up by and when I say wrap things up, we're a little bit over, but the food's coming, and this place has really good food, folks. You need to get up to the College Bar right here next to Sun Devil Stadium. I always get a little wave out to Coach Powers, even though he may not be in his office. He is close enough to see me here, so one day we're going to get Coach Powers sitting right here in this spot, and we can talk about it. But in the meantime, great news today when the Sun Devil hockey team announced that there are not 1, not 2, not 3, but 8 players in NHL development camps in their fourth full year of NCAA hockey. Your thoughts?
It's just crazy with how much growth this program has had, and you look at the various types of players who they have going. Brinson Pashnuk, Josh Maniscalco. Of course, Brinson's had a couple of successful years, but when you think about some of the other guys who are at these development camps, so Demetrius Comanzis, there's just so much speed and skill that the program maybe didn't have in a few recent years, and it just, with guys like Maniscalco, Comanzis, they made an immediate impact this year, and I think just down the line they're going to be such good players, and just how overnight they kind of just flipped that switch from, maybe not having the speed and skill that they want to having guys that are now NHL caliber players possibly down the line.
Well, let's jump into this first one. the Paschniks are in your hometown.
Yep, it's
Rumor has it they're boarding over at your home with your parents.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I actually told my family last week that I found out the news. I said, you should go down Sharks Ice, check them out. I know any Vegas fans who are tuning into the show and who are fans of, you know, ice time hockey. I'm sure they don't like to hear that. They don't like to hear the word Sharks at all. But I told them, you know, go down, check them out. A couple of ASU guys. That was one of the things I wish I was in town for, just check them out at Sharks Development Camp. But couldn't happen to a pair of, you know, nicer guys between Steen and Britson, and great hockey players as well. And such different games that they bring to the table. We have Britson, who is physical but two-way defenseman, can play both ways, can jump up on the rush super fast, has a great shot. And then you have Steen, who's kind of can throw the body around. We saw that a lot this last year with Dom Garcia, Jake Clifford. That fourth line was mean to a lot of teams who came into Oceanside Ice Arena. But you know, couldn't have two better guys. Talk about Maniscalco. He's a defenseman who I think talk about projectable players and what he could be. I mean, played in the U.S. National Development Program, played for the Dubuque Fighting Saints along with Mike Field, who's an assistant, but they have connection there from Dubuque. And, you know, there's just a lot to be excited about with that team. And I think Maniscalco is one of the building blocks over the coming years. You have Carson Briere at Philadelphia camp, Austin Lemieux with a connection in Pittsburgh. Those are, you know, young guys to build around as well. Lemieux, you know, this is his first year.
How about Johnny Walker wearing number 89 for Columbus in their development camp? What's going on with that, Johnny? Come on.
Yeah, Joe, I'm sure, you know, you're in the NHL facility, you're fine with whatever number they give you, especially that young in your career. But yeah, Johnny Walker, of course. How can you forget a Hobie Baker candidate this last year? And I know you had the Johnny for Hobie campaign going, but there's just a lot to look forward to with this team. And you look at the 8 different guys in the prospect camps right now, they're not a similar type of player. You got Johnny Walker, who's a great shooter, Brinson, who's a great two-way defenseman, and then you have Maniscalco, who stay-at-home defenseman but can play as well. There's a lot of different types of players that are going into these camps, and it really attests to, you know, what Coach Powers has done with bringing in different types of players to create a really well-rounded team and a really well-rounded program.
Well, here's what's nice when you're building an NCAA program. We're going to wrap it up on this, I promise. When you look at the skill that they're getting and the development, which they're there for, right, at the NHL level, that certainly is going to help your NCAA program, right?
Yeah.
Just look at how many kids are drafted that are Boston U commits, and you know, things like that, or played at Boston U or any of the other powerhouses, right? If you're going to be a powerhouse, you need to bring that level of player in.
And I think, to quote an NHL goaltender, Joey Decourt.
There's a name from the past.
Joey Decourt, of course, who had a great year here with ASU, and then went on to play one game with the Ottawa Senators. They're kind of just testing him out at the NHL level. But to quote him, he came back into town and got a chance to speak with the media, and he was talking about once that new stadium gets built and the type of players they're bringing in, he thinks it's going to be a place for players to come for
a destination.
20, a destination. And you just look at the weather and some of the other factors that contribute to playing here. I thought he said it best with, the program set for maybe 10, 20 years to come, especially with that new facility. So that's from one of the founding fathers, and Joey Decourt, and a guy who I'm sure we'll be seeing at the professional level, either the NHL, overseas, AHL, over these next couple of years. We'll be hearing a lot about him. So it's an exciting time for hockey in the Southwest, whether you're a Knights fan, Coyotes, or you're here at the collegiate level, or you're a female hockey player with Lyndsey Fry. It's just a great time to be around. I think Seth said it best. You're going to start to see hockey just continue to grow and blow up here in Arizona.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up another show. I promised we wouldn't go any longer. We could talk hockey all the time. Andrew, it's always great to have you on board. I'm going to pester you as long as you're in Arizona. And maybe if you're not in Arizona, I'm still going to pester you to come back on. Thanks to Seth Askelson, our new beat reporter for Coyotes hockey, for Ice Time Hockey Southwest, and his great insight. And Lyndsey Fry, I call her the first lady of Arizona hockey, right? I mean, is there a title that fits her better? I know she's got 1,000 titles, but that's a great one. We wouldn't be here without our sponsors here at College Bar and Grill. We're getting ready to eat, because that's what we do when we get done with this. We eat. The food is excellent here. The drinks are better, and the environment is perfect. OxyPow has always been on board. As you can see, our display of OxyPow products in front of us. And our newest corporate partner, M-Drive, is keeping everybody amped up and energized and rolling along. So thanks to all you guys. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Next week we'll be at a different site, but it's going to be fun, I promise you. So tune in July 2nd, 2 days before the 4th of July. to see episode 4 of Hockey Talk in the Desert Southwest.